amount of people saying this is rigged was crazy.
This fight was rigged.
So Jake Paul just walked out of that Anthony Joshua fight and said something that's got everyone talking even more than the actual stoppage. And honestly, what came out of his mouth might be tougher to defend than anything that happened in the ring.
A horrible concept for a fight. I didn't even watch it. I know everyone, including myself, was saying this is a lose-lose for Jake because even if he won, he would still get laughed at for it, which he is, rightfully so.
We're barely hours removed from Jake Paul versus Anthony Joshua, wrapping up, and people are already feeling some type of way about how this whole thing played out.
From the very beginning, I said there would be no knockouts in this fight. I was very, very firm in that prediction.
They announced Jake Paul as the winner and look at his whole journey and what he's built. But this didn't feel clean. Not to me, and definitely not to everyone else who watched it go down. The fight wrapped up. They made the call, but instead of feeling settled, it just left this weird feeling where you're sitting there rewinding everything in your mind, wondering if what you witnessed actually makes sense.
Is because it's just boring. It was extremely lackluster, and that was an extremely predictable thing to see from a mile away.
What went down inside those ropes told the whole story right there. The moment that referee jumped in and called it off, there wasn't that instant shock that turns into crazy excitement. First thing you saw was pure confusion. Anthony Joshua hit the deck, but he was alert. He was conscious. He was trying to figure out what the hell just happened.
You see this man visibly holding back his punches, where he would throw a punch and then he would just not let it connect. He would just drop his hand down.
Jake Paul threw his hands up, but even that felt weird, like he wasn't sure either. The crowd didn't go wild. You heard some boos, people yelling random stuff, and this strange silence that just doesn't happen when a heavyweight fight gets decided. It felt like someone hit pause on the whole thing, instead of reaching the actual ending.
When it was clear as day that Jake's face was wide open to receive it. Bro, this is disappointing. This is disappointing.
Going into this fight, everyone pretty much knew what to expect. People were breaking down Joshua's jab, his composure, how he controls range, and keeps distance. The thinking wasn't that Jake Paul couldn't win, but if Joshua stayed calm and stuck his game plan, he'd either stop Jake or win every round on the cards. The betting reflected exactly that. The longer this fight went, the more money shifted toward Joshua. That was the general consensus. Even Jake Paul admitted this was his biggest challenge, not his biggest payday, but his most dangerous opponent.
And after everything is said and done, they probably took home a bit more than that. Ain't no telling. I'm hearing north of 80 million for Jake and anywhere between 60 to 75 million for Mike Tyson, from my understanding.
That's exactly why the ending felt so off. Inside those ropes, Joshua was doing everything people predicted he would do early. He stayed patient, used his reach, didn't get pulled into wild exchanges. Jake Paul had his moments, but nothing that looked like it would end the fight. When that knockdown happened, it didn't look like one of those shots that completely erases a guy. It looked like a solid punch that caught him off balance. Joshua went down, sure, but he didn't look lost or disconnected.
This fight was rigged. I could be wrong. I can't even say that because in my gut, I don't feel like I am.
The referee became the main talking point almost instantly. That count seemed rushed to a lot of people watching, and the decision to wave it off felt premature. In heavyweight, boxing fighters usually get more time to recover, especially former champions, and guys who've proven they can take punishment. That's not special treatment, that's just how it works. This time, that recovery window felt way shorter than normal. When the stoppage came, it felt like they made the call for convenience, not because it was obvious.
Why is he not moving like he was during training? He didn't hit the signature Mike Tyson.
Once the second round got rolling, the whole dynamic of this fight started showing itself in ways that weren't good for Jake Paul. About 3 minutes and 10 seconds into round 2, Anthony Joshua found his groove, and anyone who knows boxing could see it happening. He started controlling the distance with this sharp, patient jab that wasn't meant to hurt Jake, but to keep him exactly where Joshua wanted him.
Sport for a year now, and I probably shouldn't be saying this, but all of this shit's fucking rigged. You see people whining and dining each other. You see people at Staples Center. This sport's rigged for sure.
Joshua's lead hand kept finding its target popping. Jake's head back just enough to mess with his balance without Joshua overcommitting to anything. The live punch stats that showed up on the DAZN broadcast told the story. Joshua connected with 11 jabs in round 2 alone, while Paul landed 4 total punches in that same round.
And we saw it play out. What we saw here was a clear indication that Mike was holding back, not doing the things that we know come natural to him when he's in the ring and ready to go.
Jake Paul's response during this stretch showed you everything you needed to know. Instead of moving side to side, he kept backing straight up toward the ropes, especially along that blue corner side of the ring. The commentators Todd Grisham and Sergio Mora both caught this happening in real time around 2 minutes and 5 seconds into the round, pointing out that Paul's footwork looked shaky compared to his previous fight back in August. Mora specifically called out how Paul's timing was off, especially when he tried to counter Joshua's jab with that right hand over the top.
And we saw it play out. What we saw here was a clear indication that Mike was holding back, not doing the things that we know come natural to him when he's in the ring and ready to go.
What really caught the attention of reporters at ringside wasn't just the action between the fighters, but what was happening around the ring. Multiple journalists who were sitting close, including Jake Donovan from Boxing Scene and Mike Coppinger from ESPN, later talked about how the judges were acting during round 2. One judge on the west side seemed to be writing way less than usual, while another kept looking over at the referee during the exchanges. None of this proved anything by itself, but it was strange enough that people noticed and brought it up afterwards.
There was no anything worthwhile. As I said from the beginning, this is just a cash grab. It is 2 athletes getting a payday and nothing else.
Round 3 just made all those observations even more obvious. Right from the bell, about 6 minutes into the total fight, Joshua started putting together combinations with way more confidence. At 6 minutes and 42 seconds, he connected clean with a left jab, followed by a straight right that snapped Paul's head back and got a big reaction from the crowd. Paul took the shot without going down, but he wasn't firing much back. The unofficial punch numbers that the broadcast shared showed Joshua landing 18 total shots in round 3, while Paul connected with 9 mostly single punches instead of combinations.
A legend, but he's also a man. And there is no man that can beat Father Time. Time is undefeated and it always will be.
The energy inside that arena made it impossible to miss what was happening. Every time Joshua landed something clean, especially with the right hand, the noise jumped up instantly. At 7 minutes 55 seconds, after a 3-punch combo from Joshua that finished with a right to the body, the whole crowd stood up. This wasn't partisan cheering, this was people recognizing momentum when they saw it. Even Jake Paul's corner looked more frantic during this round, with trainer BJ Flores yelling instructions way more urgently than before.
Really early from what I can tell. He ran out of steam by like the second round almost entirely, at least from what I've...
Even with all that, when unofficial scorecards started getting passed around, several analysts questioned how round 3 got scored. 2 of the 3 judges apparently gave that round to Paul, which surprised people who were watching the live feed. Former world champion Timothy Bradley, speaking on ESPN's post-fight panel about 23 minutes and 40 seconds into the broadcast, said straight up that he had Joshua winning that round based on clean punches and ring control. This difference of opinion became one of the first real technical issues in all the controversy that followed.
It was always going to be an incredibly difficult challenge to fight someone as young as Jake Paul.
Round 4 is when everything shifted completely. Around 9 minutes and 18 seconds, Joshua connected with a right hand that clearly hurt Jake Paul. Paul's legs went stiff and he moved back toward the ropes near the neutral corner. The moment was quick, but it was obvious. Joshua followed up carefully, throwing a left hook that barely missed, then stepping in again. What stood out was how fast the referee, who was positioned slightly to Joshua's left, got between the fighters during the next exchange. Several punches that looked like they landed clean got interrupted before either guy could really get going. At this point, momentum was clearly moving one direction.
I am not surprised that Jake won this fight, and people are already clowning on him for it, saying that he's already booked his next fight against Joe Biden and then his following fight against Jimmy Carter. Jake Paul hurts more elderly people than a staircase. He's built a reputation of just challenging.
Joshua's confidence grew, his posture relaxed and upright, While Paul's movement got tighter and more defensive, the ringside cameras caught Joshua's corner nodding approval at 9 minutes 45 seconds, while Paul's corner looked visibly stressed. This round, more than any other, became central to everything that happened after, not because of how it ended, but because of how much control Joshua seemed to have gained.
I know everyone, including myself, was saying this is a lose-lose for Jake because even if he won, he would still get laughed at for it.
Then came the moment that flipped everything upside down. With about 18 seconds left in round 4, around 10 minutes 42 seconds on the fight clock. Jake Paul threw this looping overhand right. It wasn't textbook. It came wide, almost thrown from the shoulder, but it caught Joshua near the temple, as Joshua was stepping slightly to his left. Joshua dropped to one knee, his right glove touching the canvas first. What happened next is where all the debate started. Joshua immediately tried to get up. At the count of 3, he was already pushing himself off the canvas. By 4, he was on one knee, eyes up, looking straight ahead. The referee started counting almost instantly, with barely any pause between the knockdown and the verbal count. Multiple analysts later pointed out that the rhythm of the count felt faster than standard. By the count of 6, Joshua was completely upright, hands raised, feet planted underneath him. Visually, Joshua looked balanced and aware. His eyes followed the referee, his gloves were up, and he stepped forward at what seemed like the count of 7. Despite all this, the referee waved the fight off at 8, calling for the stoppage. The reaction in the arena was instant and harsh. Boos came from multiple sections, including the people sitting closest to the ring. Slow motion replays started rolling almost immediately across all the broadcasts. DAZN, ESPN, and Sky Sports all showed the sequence from at least 3 different angles. From the overhead camera, Joshua's posture looked solid. From the ringside angle, his eyes looked clear and focused. These replays sparked immediate debate among the commentators, with former fighters questioning whether the stoppage met the standard usually applied in heavyweight title-level fights. The technical criticism started almost right away once those replay loops began running across every broadcast, and it focused on details that boxing people notice automatically. At the exact moment the referee stepped in, Anthony Joshua's eyes were focused and responsive. This was clear on the DAZN slow-motion replay that aired at approximately 12:18 a.m. Eastern Time on December 20th. Joshua wasn't staring blank or blinking too much. His eyes followed the referee's movement, and his head tracked forward as he set his stance. For ringside analysts, eye focus is one of the first signs of whether a fighter is really hurt, and in this case, it didn't match how urgent the stoppage seemed. All of this added fuel to a bigger accusation that fans kept repeating across social media on December 20th and into the early hours of December 21st. That boxing was once again protecting money over competition, not through direct corruption, but through patterns, timing, and strategic silence. The controversy didn't build because of one punch or one decision. It built because of how every single piece around that decision lined up in a way that left people feeling uncomfortable.